Next event in the pool, the women's 1,500-meter freestyle. This is a final, but also there were events earlier today, and technically they could win.
Yes, in international competition, once you get to the Olympics, you may have to do this event twice, and I'll further that in a second once we meet all the athletes. Megan Frost, 20 years of age, out of the Montreal area. Pointe Claire, we hear that name a lot of Pointe Claire swimmers swimming here. They do a great job in that program. Peyton Lee out of Brock University, swim team. She's 16 years of age, had a huge drop in her 400-meter freestyle. That's a good sign for her. Tara Vroom out of Barrie, Ontario. We'll see her teammate also in this race a little later. Naomi Minot, only 14 years of age, out of Tawasin, BC, where the ferry docks in Vancouver. Mia Thomas, 15 years of age, out of the Etobicoke, powerful Etobicoke swim team. Neela Klein out of Jacksonville, Florida. That's where she lives and trains now. She's 16 years of age. Delphine Mercier. We'll have lane number 6. She's out of Sherbrooke. Julia Stranoski was on the World Junior team last year. She finished 13th in the 800-meter freestyle. Trains in Langley, BC. This is the other Barrie woman. Layla Orofsky, 17 years of age, was at the Pan Am Games and the World Juniors last year. Coached by Andy Bobby. Emma Finlin, Edmonton. Lane number 4, fastest qualifier, has the best time, fastest seed time, I should say. She was 12th in this event at the World Championships in February. Her coach in Edmonton is Paul Birmingham. And what I started to say was that at internationally, you'd have to do the prelims and finals, and because the 1,500 is such a tough race, they're actually separated by a whole day, as is the 800-meter freestyle. But here, Canada's decided to just do it in one day, therefore, it's what's called a time final, and the people that were in the morning preliminary session, if somebody actually had a great time, it would count, and you could get to an Olympic team or a medal or whatever based on what you did in the morning. The fastest one this morning was 17:15.
Canadian record in this event is held by none other than our colleague Brittany McLean, who set it in the Gold Coast in Australia back in 2014 at 15:57.15. And here's the lanes for you. Up at the top of the screen from Pointe Claire is Megan Frost, the 20-year-old who's the oldest in the field. And then in lane 8, Tara Vroom from Barrie. Then Mia Thomas from Etobicoke is in 7. Delphine Pietera Mercier, the 16-year-old from Sherbrooke. Then Layla Orofsky in lane 5 from the Barrie Trojan. Edmonton's Emma Finlin, the fastest qualifier, is in 4. Julia Strojnowska from the Langley Abbott Olympians in 3. Neela Klein is in 2. Naomi Minot and Peyton Lee round out the field in lanes 1 and 0. The fastest time earlier in the heats, by the way, was Tori McLensick, who went 17:15.
And I don't think these athletes are going to have any difficulty actually matching and beating that.
Right now, it is lane 3, Strojnowska, and beside her, Emma Finlin in lane 4.
Well, Emma Finlin, this is an interesting situation because Emma Finlin would certainly like to get a little bit under her best time. She did a great job at the Worlds in finishing 12th, did her best time by 5 seconds, and that best time is about 6 seconds over the Olympic cutoff time. But there's an asterisk here. She's going anyway, and the reason she's going anyway is that at the World Championships, she swam the 10 kilometers. She finished in the top 24 athletes.
Open water.
Open water, as people refer to it. 10 kilometers. It's a 2-hour race, basically. And there are certain rules about how you qualify to go to the Olympic Games because they don't want everybody qualifying, and they can't have qualifications in a pool, and yet obviously you can't have qualifications in rivers with currents and all this. So basically you had to qualify at the World Championships, and they have geographical representations to make sure it's spread around the world, and she made it under the geographical representations, but they didn't know that right away. So she actually thought she missed the team, and then a few hours later they phoned up and said, no, actually, you know what, you actually made the Olympic team. So Emma Finlin in lane number 4 out of Edmonton is going to the Olympic Games in the open water / what's called a 10-kilometer race, but she would love to be a pool swimmer as well, and that's why she's going to try to make the time here in this 1,500-meter freestyle. 16:09.09 is the time. So this is a long race. There's another, 14 minutes.
See at the end of the pool, the judges holding up cards showing the athletes how many laps they have to go. It's 25 as our 2 leaders, Finland and Strojnowska, touch. done 250 meters. It's all about pace judgment here. You got to be in amazing shape, obviously.
Well, and the 1500 meter, Rob, is a beast. I mean, it's a big one. It's a tough one, right? It's so much different than all the other races in the sport of swimming. You know, the 100 meter races take a minute. The 200 meter races take 2 minutes and change. Even the 400s only take 4 minutes. This is a 15-minute. This is a slog. The poor distance swimmers, and I say that with a smile, the sprinters are going to get out and go home, and they'll be in the shower, and these guys are still going to be training.
Yep.
I mean, they have to put in miles and miles and miles. I mean, a lot of these athletes will go 70 kilometers a week in their training, and some of them will go 90 or 100 kilometers. Most people don't drive that much in a week, and that's how much these guys are training. It's an amazing amount. They have to be so mentally strong, and the coach has got to be basically very understanding and very able to motivate them to do this kind of pain and put their bodies through this kind of training. It's a big thing for these athletes.
Well, and the benchmark is Katie Ledecky, the American, who has swum 15 minutes and 20.48 seconds for this time, and I think she owns the top 15 times in the world or something.
Katie Ledecky is unbelievable, and we heard this morning Brittany McLean saying that when she set that Canadian record of 15:57, she was over 50 meters behind Katie Ledecky. That's how good Katie Ledecky is in this race. But the thing about Katie Ledecky that amazes me is that she's in her late 20s and she's still doing this. We only have one woman in this race today that's in her 20s, and she's only 20.
Yep.
That's Megan Frost in lane number 9. They're all teenagers because it's such a tough road that most of them just can't keep going for years and years and years and years.
So right now it is Emma Finlin in lane 4, and she hit 400 meters in 4:16.81. She's going to touch 4:50 now momentarily in 4:49.4, and followed by Julia Strojnowska. And I'll tell you the third place in a moment. It is Leila Oravsky, who is in lane 5. The 17-year-olds. We have a couple of 17-year-olds and a 19-year-old. 3 teenagers all battling here.
Very smooth at this point. And now notice the legs, all right? The interesting part is you got Strojnowska, and she actually does a little bit stronger kick during her race, whereas Finlin is really letting her legs drag behind. And this is really because the legs don't give you a ton of propulsion. They're basically balance. And in a short 50-meter sprint, yeah, you use the legs like a motorboat because they'll give you some propulsion, but they take a lot of oxygen compared to the arms. The arms give you a lot of propulsion. So most of the distance swimmers, you'll see them back off. We just talked about Katie Ledecky. Katie Ledecky, I've watched when she races very often, she'll pick her kick up right now into the turn, and then she'll use her kick a little bit off the turn. Unlike, yeah, we didn't see Finland do it. And then maybe in the middle of the pool, she'll do it for about 5 meters. But the rest of the time, she lets them drag behind.
Well, Emma Finland's creating almost no white water behind her in that where her feet are. Much more so from Strojnowska.
Julia told me that her parents are tennis pros back in the Vancouver area. Surprising she didn't take up the sport of tennis. Wouldn't be slogging all these meters day in and day out.
Well, we've been talking about our top 3. In 4th place, way down at the bottom of the screen, Peyton Lee, the 16-year-old of Brock Niagara, is hanging tough here.
And she had a breakthrough 400-meter freestyle swim, so this is actually not a huge surprise. As I said, she swims with Dave Bling, who's the head coach of the Brock University swim varsity team, as well as the club team there in St. Catharines, Ontario, not too far from Niagara Falls. So one of the breakthroughs that came in swimming, and this is a while ago, but when the time started really dropping because the athletes all of a sudden said, hey, you know what? I think we're going to do morning workouts. I remember going to my coach and saying, should we do morning workouts? I hear they're doing it in California. And he says, I ain't getting up. If you want to come in,
really?
Find a lifeguard.
That was in the 80s or 70s?
That was in the 70s. And then what ended up happening is everybody started doing morning workouts. But it used to be that you couldn't swim that much because the chlorine would kill your eyes. Well, then around 1972, goggles were invented. but nobody would wear them in races because they were afraid they might fall off, they might fill up or whatever. And then it finally took a guy named David Wilkie to win a gold medal wearing goggles in the '76 Olympics, and everybody said, okay, we can wear them when we're racing as well. And there have been refinements certainly over the years, but it has made it possible to do a lot more training because now your eyes don't feel like they're falling out of your head.
Emma Finlin is about to hit the halfway point here in this race. She hits 750 meters in 8:07.71.
Which, if you are good with math and you double that, that gives her 16:14, and it's under her best time, but it's not under the Olympic standard. Now, what happens sometimes for some athletes is that they do what's called in the parlance of swimming negative splitting. You see this obviously in track and field a lot, where the athletes kind of meander around the track for a couple laps and then have a huge sprint at the end. Not quite that dramatic in the sport of swimming, but in the distance events, more so than most of the other events, some of them tend to do the negative split and come back faster the last 400 or 500 meters.
Strzelecka not letting Finland get much further ahead. She's kind of had this 10-meter lead or so for a while. In third place, Oravska is another 15 or so meters behind Strzelecka.
And Layla Orlavska was on the Pan Am team, first international teams in 2023, pretty good as a 16-year-old. She made the finals in the mile, and she was in the World Junior 1,500-meter freestyle as well.
Finland's laps around 33 and change, 33.4. Strzelecka just put down a 33.68.
Trying to pick it up and get back on the track. Strzelecka's best time is 16:47, recent best time, I should say. And she's going to destroy that if she keeps this up. Looks really, really good.
Again, Finland was at the World Championships, comes in with a seed time of 16:15 and change. She's going to give that a test. That last lap by Finland was 33.3 again. That's been pretty consistent for her, like a metronome.
Well, and that's what I remember. There was a Swiss swimmer, but it really could be used for a lot of these swimmers. Is they said she's like an Omega watch, tick, 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 every lap the same. And then your body gets efficient doing that. When you jump up and down by a second here and a second there, your body doesn't know what to do, and all of a sudden it's producing more lactate, less lactate, so it becomes very tough. Strzelecka really doing a good job staying in a solid second spot behind your leader you see on the screen. Finland, there she is in second spot there, Strzelecka. Trains under Brian Metcalf at Langley. He's always got a ton of really good young swimmers coming up in that program in Langley, BC.
Byron, I would think if you do this event and you stick with it into your well, late teens and 20s, you've got to find a way to love training. Like it's not, you can't be one of the people who hates training. You got to love training.
Oh no, absolutely. And I mean, a lot of athletes like training. They like getting to the pool, but just a little bit longer and more arduous sometimes for the milers. But what I always say to the milers is young sprinter, I mean, in the sprinters, you could train really hard, and another guy with more talent may not train as hard, but they might be able to fake a minute in one sense. They could maybe get up and still do a great swim in a minute. Somebody with more talent than you that doesn't work in a race, beat them. If you can outwork people in longer races, and you can beat people with more talent if they don't put in the work. And so there is a silver lining to put that work in, and you're going to beat some other people. The other downside to being a 1,500-meter freestyler is that usually there isn't enough depth to provide big races during the middle of the season when you're in a regional competition in Vancouver or Calgary or Montreal, wherever it is. So they're kind of boring races, and people don't get very excited watching them, and it's not got that much excitement to it. But boy, when you get to the Olympic Games, some of the races that I've seen over my coverage of Olympic Games are some of the very best races of the Olympic Games, because the tension is there for 15 minutes, not just a 1 minute race. You got 15 minutes where the lead changes hands.
Somebody tries a tactic.
And it fails. That's right, exactly. And then you get somebody like the American Bobby Fink, who was in 4th place with 1 lap to go, and he has a motorboat behind him on the last 50 meters, and he wins the gold medal.
Emma Finlin's getting ready to touch for 1,200 meters. She also won the Canadian title last year and in 2nd place in last year's Canadian trials. Exact the same person who's in 2nd place here, Strojnowska, and in 3rd place, yeah, you guessed it, Orawski.
But, you know what? There are some youngsters coming up. You know, like right now, Orawska's getting challenged by young Peyton Lee, the 16-year-old from the Brock swim team, way down in the bottom. We'll see her in a second. They'll come into the picture shortly. You can see there we go, right at the bottom. Now you can see her as she comes in. Real good battle for 3rd, actually.
There are lots of races within the races, aren't there?
Yes.
Trojnas, or at least Finland, through 1,250 meters. And she has not slowed much at all. That last 50 was 33:49.
And the other thing I like to see about this, and it may sound funny to those that aren't familiar with it, is some swimmers are so used to, when you swim in your club at home, you'll have several people in your lane. And for that reason, you end up having to do what are called circles. Anybody that does public swimming knows you have to circle. That's more people in the lane. But what happens, some athletes you'll see, they actually will circle in a race. They'll come up the wall and they're so used to edging over a little bit towards the lane line that they don't swim down the middle. Well, over 1,500 meters, you're going to swim an extra 5 or 10 meters if you do that. So these swimmers are doing a pretty good job of staying right in the middle of the pool. Middle of their lane,
swimming along the lane marker. How do you feel about that?
As long as you stay there, though, right? You don't move to the other lane marker as you come back the other way, right? So, and obviously there's a position, there's a reason to do that at times. If there's somebody a little bit ahead of you, you go right on the lane marker and try to drag off of it.
So the next touch for Emma Finlin, our athlete in lane 4, the first of the yellow lanes, will have her at 1,400 meters.
Which means they should be taking out the bell. Get the bell lap.
Let's listen. There it is. It has been taken out. She'll touch. It's less than 100 meters to go now for Emma Finlin, who is 12th at the World Championships. 15:22:28.
Yeah, so she's fallen off a little bit. She isn't going to get to that Olympic qualifying time. A little over her best time as well. But again, as we mentioned, she's going to the Olympic Games for the open water, the 10-kilometer race. So she's already going, just won't be able to get into the pool in this race.
At the touch here, Finland less than 50 meters to go in 15:55:57. How quick can the crowd bring her home here in this 1,500?
Second spot still Strodowska. Problem is, Finland so far ahead, you can't see anybody else.
And here she comes, less than 15 meters to go for Emma Finlin out of Edmonton Keyano Swim Club. She is going to touch Canadian champion in 16:28:15. Now coming in second place, here comes Julia Strojnowska, the 17-year-old from the Langley and Abbotsford Olympians, and she'll touch in 16:42:99.
That's 5 seconds better than she was entered in. And third spot's going to go to the youngster, the 16-year-old Peyton Lee. She's down at the bottom. You can see her down at the bottom. She's past Orawska, who's having trouble the last couple hundred meters.
Nicely done, Peyton Lee, with a really strong last few laps.
That's 24 seconds faster than her best time. Big drop by Peyton Lee.
Orawska fourth, Vroom fifth.
And those are teammates for Orawska and Vroom. They train day in and day out next to each other. Maybe it's fitting that they both finished a second apart.
Pretty good battle here for sixth place.
7-8.
And it is very tight as everybody comes through in rapid order. 6th went to Naomi Minot. 7th to Neela Klein. 8th for Megan Frost. 9th for Pietra Mercier, Delphine Pietra Mercier. And 10th place to Mia Thomas.
Nice even stroking by your winner. So the interesting part is that when you swim the open water, you've got to be able to swim like that. There's a wonderful sound when you're in the water, knowing you only have 2 laps to go. When you're swimming the open water, not only do you have to swim, in essence, your same freestyle, but you've got to be able to pick your head up and sight and see where you're going. Because there's certain buoys, and obviously it's not a straight 10-kilometer race, all right? There's buoys you've got to go around. So you've got to be able to do that without breaking stroke, without swallowing water. I mean, there are lots of things you have to do. And on top of that, you got to fight your way through. There's other people that are elbowing you and moving. And so it's a tough one.
Emma Finlin out of Edmonton, 16:28.15, the Canadian champion in 2024.
Congratulations, Emma. You did not make the qualifying time, but you're still a national champion. How do you feel right now?
I'm a bit disappointed with that race, but it's okay.
You did qualify, though, for the open water, so what are you going to be working on for the next few months?
Probably just a lot of volume and working on probably the back half of my 15 still.
What do you prefer, training for a 1500 or a 10K?
Probably 15.
Well, good luck for this summer for the 10K. You get to sign your name on the boarding pass for that, so congratulations.
Emma Finlin gets to sign the board because she qualified for the Olympics in the open water, the 10-kilometer swim. Won't get the 1500 after today's swim, but she gets the open water.